One thing that comes right to mind is the difficulty to adapt to change, because what got us to where we are today isn't necessarily what's going to get us to where we need to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have a company competency and resilience that is something that you really have to really deal with the amount of change that everyone encounters in their life at PadSplit. And it's hard. It's hard. Change sucks. Change can be difficult. And so we tell people, like, have your feelings about it. Let's come to an understanding, but you got to be able to move forward. Because if you have a hard time with change, or you get stuck in the past, you're going to get left behind. And
Mm.
that's sort of where our other value of compassionate directness comes in, that other people call radical candor, but it allows us to just to have very frank, direct conversations.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Ron Camargo, and my guest here today is Justin Baker, who is a director of people operations at PadSplit. Justin, thank you so much for being here today.
It's a pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited to talk with you as well because you guys have a much different business than the ones that I've been speaking with as of recent. So why don't we start off with you just telling everyone a little bit more about PadSplit, who you are, who you guys help, and any context you want to share about the business.
Yeah. Well, so PadSplit is a company. The way that I frame it is it facilitates essentially the supply and demand of affordable housing and access to affordable housing. So we have a marketplace where traditional homeowners renovate their properties into PadSplits, which are just houses that are designed for co-living. And we have them all across the United States. And then we have a group of people who search out people who are looking to have access to affordable housing, and typically they're low income earners who live in these high cost of living cities. And so we go through an approval process with them so that they become members and can access the marketplace. So it's like the supply and demand of affordable housing.
That's really, really cool. And there's so many questions that I have, and I'm sure everyone that's listening is really curious about it too. In a
Yeah.
way, it's a way to create one more affordable living environments for these people, but also quality living environments for these people. So they're not paying, call it $500 a month on a piece of trash. They're paying $500 a month on something that's actually really, really nice for them to
Yeah.
have a good quality of life as well.
Yeah. And when you think about low income earners, so many of them have to travel long distance to be able to go to their job because they don't have access. So a lot of our pad splits are located in areas that are closer to work and actually in the community that they work in.
Hmm.
And so it allows them to, save some time and other benefits, of course. But
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then when we first had our conversation, Justin, you actually had a term for the member and the renter. What were the actual terms that you shared with me? I can't remember.
yeah, so the member is the renter, they're the tenant, they're the person who, when I first joined PadSplit, I thought a member was like a 20-year-old who just graduated college. But in
Mhm.
fact, members are just people who, they're school bus drivers, there's nurses, they're teachers, they're veterans, they're people from all walks of life.
Mm.
And then the hosts are the landlords, if you will. They're the property owners.
Mm-hmm. That's what it was. Members and hosts. I couldn't
Members and
recall.
hosts.
Yeah, I couldn't
Mhm.
recall if it was host or owner, what the terminologies I use. But the reason why I'm asking that is because I think it would be so interesting for you to lay out a little bit of the dynamics that you guys have in terms of the member. I think that part is a little bit clear cut.
Yeah.
It's clear cut now on they find affordable housing for themselves. But tell me a little bit more about the host side as well and how that dynamic works for at PadSplit.
Yeah, typically hosts are people who own multiple properties um, in multiple areas. And we have a group of people whose job it is to find these people and get them to become hosts. And the business, the value prop essentially is you can make more money, but do good at the same time if you take your property and make it into a pad split.
Mm.
And what usually we see is someone does what we say and they list their property, they renovate it to become a pad split, and they have a really great experience. They have fully occupied people and they make more money and do good at the same time. And so they go and list their second property or third property.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where our host success team comes in to make sure hosts stay hosts and grow.
Yeah, awesome. And then it goes on and on and on and on and starts scaling from that. That's really, really cool. And I
Yeah.
must ask this question. And I know this is actually something that I didn't bring up when we first had our conversation, but it
Yeah.
just popped into my head. And I'm sure you guys get it all the time. If someone is owns a property and
Yeah.
they are looking to decide on what to do with that property, the first thing that usually would come to someone's mind is either rent, Airbnb, or a million other options that are out there. What
Yeah.
would you guys say is the big difference that PadSplit really offers from something like Airbnb, for example?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting on a macro level, we're actually seeing people who have their Airbnbs and are moving over to become pad splits
Mm,
because there's a greater demand for access to affordable housing than there is necessarily people looking for vacation spots when they travel.
mm,
Um, and for me, it's a couple of things. One is, we have a rich benchmark of members who are chomping at the bit to have access to affordable housing. And so we sort of have the roster there to occupy your pad split, if you will. And I also think, on a micro level, there has to be something that makes people understand what we're trying to do here. They also have to be motivated to help solve the affordable housing crisis. There's a
mm,
part of them that recognizes like this is a problem and I want to do what I can to help.
mhm.
And, assuming they're a good host, which is, what it is to be any kind of landlord,
Yeah,
and they will have a fully occupied host. Yeah, a fully occupied pad split. The members will stay. They'll have a good time. The rent will be paid,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and everything works out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it sounds to me as someone who doesn't have too much knowledge about the company, but from an outsider perspective, it's like having the value laid out from every single possible direction. Where it's a little bit more affordable. I won't call it on the cheaper end, but more affordable for the tenant, so it's easier for them to pay. So that's a plus. You don't get
Yeah.
eight payments as a host. Two, you get more of them in one property as opposed to just one of them. That can be
Mhm.
a little bit inconsistent. So that's another layer. And then,
Yeah.
the impact side of things that you mentioned, where they understand the impact and the value that they're getting. So that's a check. But also, at the end of the day, it is also a business for them. So that's also a check as well. So all these things are supplementing each other in a way that allows it to be impactful for the mission and the purpose behind trying to help this issue. But also, at the end of the day, to have impact, you need to have a business that's making money.
Yeah.
So that gets
Yep.
covered too. So it's like that positive feedback loop in which each of
Mhm.
these steps feeds into each other.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And it's really cool to be a part of a company that is doing good, and you can make money and do good at the same time. Those things aren't mutually exclusive.
Yeah. Huh. I had someone in one of my first few podcast episodes. He talked a lot about just delivering, just serving, just being able to serve first.
Mm.
Because if you do the um, right things will come right back at you. And if you're delivering that value, the money will follow. So it's really
Yeah.
just have the purpose, deliver the service, be of service to someone, and
Mhm.
everything else comes after that. That's really, really awesome. I love
Yeah.
to switch a little bit of the conversation here, Justin,
Sure.
into PadSplit itself, the company
Mm.
itself, the company's growth, which
Mhm.
is something that, as we spoke about in our first conversation, you guys are doing really, really well. So I want to hear a little bit about how the company is doing. It'd be interesting for me to understand what that growth, they call it tracked
Mhm.
path is looking like, and then
Yeah.
also dive into a little bit of the side of challenges that come with growth. Because
Yeah.
sometimes people look at business and they think it's sunshines and rainbows, but as
Oh.
entrepreneurs, we know that's not true. So talk a little bit about that, and then we'll dive into some challenges as well.
Yeah, the way that I articulate where we are is PadSplit has sort of come out of its awkward teenage phase, and we got a couple of years left before we turn 18 and get kicked out of the house. And so, what we're really looking at is when we're hiring the people today are people who've done it before. They're
Mm,
experts in the solving the problems we need them to solve, and then when they get here, they're going to become experts at doing it at PadSplit.
hmm,
And so we are balancing expertise with culture, because our culture is so important. We are a very mission driven company that does live and breathe and die by our core values. We're not just
mhm,
people who post it on our website for people to look at it. It's in
yeah,
everything that we do and how we operate.
mhm,
Where we are right now, it's very exciting. In fact, on Monday, we have 15 people in different areas of the business starting. That puts us over the 200 people mark.
Awesome. Congrats again.
So new milestone, biggest number of people who's starting in one day, and now the biggest number of people that have been here so far at PadSplit.
That's
And
really exciting.
yeah,
Especially when you know like these people are going to be filling in some very important seats that will allow for so much to just open up. Yeah,
yes,
that's always an exciting time for business as well. Huh.
yeah.
And actually something I'll jump in very quickly, which is I don't know if we talked about this yet, but you guys are national right now, right? It's not global yet, but national at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, so our hosts, our pad splits are all located in the United States, but we do have, a global workforce. So we do have people from the Philippines, Japan, Turkey, Argentina, Nigeria, where, we're sort of spread out.
Yeah, very, very cool. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And congrats again on the trajectory. Let's jump into some of the challenges because I know
Oh,
that growth doesn't come easy.
yes.
And there's many prices to be paid in that process. So what are some when you're looking at the company's targets, the achievements you want to get to, the client acquisition side of things, the revenue side of things, what are some of the obstacles, challenges that get in the way of that?
One thing that comes right to mind is the difficulty to adapt to change.
Mm,
Because what got us to where we are today isn't necessarily what's going to get us to where we need to go.
yeah. Yeah.
So we have a company competency and resilience that is something that you really have to have um, to really deal with the amount of change that everyone encounters in their life at PadSplit. And
Mhm.
it's hard. It's hard. Change sucks. Change can be difficult. And so we tell people like, have your feelings about it. Let's come to an understanding, but you got to be able to move forward because if you have a hard time with change or you get stuck in the past, you're going to get left behind. And
Mm,
that's sort of where our other value of compassionate directness comes in, that other people call radical candor, but it allows us to just to have very frank, direct conversations. And so that is how we deal with the challenges that we're facing right now when, we're doing something that really hasn't been done before in this way and we're growing and scaling really quickly.
yeah.
The so far this year, I just met with my team and we have hired the same amount of people this year so far as we did all of last year combined.
Mm,
And all of these new people are bringing in all of their experiences and perspectives and their expertise, and they're going to come in and ask questions, which is where our other value of intellectual curiosity comes in. And
mm,
so we set the stage where it's okay to question the status quo. It's okay to ask, why are we doing it this way? Is there a way to do it better? And we encourage people to speak up and speak out about it. But it really is so much to do with the change and the growing pains of,
yeah.
you know, I've been doing this way for 3 or 4 years, and what do you mean I have to now do it this
Yeah.
way? You
Uh-huh.
know? And so that's the struggle.
Oh, that's an interesting one because the advice we will often hear is, "Oh, if you don't change, you don't get better," and all these things. I'm like, noted, here, hard, like, got it, agreed. But going through the change is a completely different story. It's like
Yeah,
looking
I know.
back, easily done, right? We can always look back and say, "Oh yeah, and here's what I changed, and here's why I got so much value from that change, etc.,
Yeah.
etc." But going through the actual
Oh,
tedious, very yeah, I'll just leave it at tedious process of trotting that annoying path and changing something that you've been doing for so long in that same way and now it has to completely shift. But
mhm.
that's also where again the growth comes from. That's where the innovation comes from. That's where the outsized returns actually appear for business growth, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah.
And something actually that I wasn't going to ask, but as I see your background, which is a
Oh,
little bit more filled than my background here as well with some books,
yeah.
I see
Yeah.
quite a lot of them. So I'm
Yes.
interested to hear if there's any specific book that really changed your perspective when it comes to business, entrepreneurship, and how you view growing the company.
I feel like this is the basic answer, and I'm okay being basic, but it's the no rules rules. Like, I read it and it definitely radicalized me. And they talk about radical candor, which is our value of compassionate directness. There's a lot of similarities there. And, it changed the way I approached human resources and people operations.
Mhm.
And so much of I'm a talker. You might not tell it now, but that's my warning label to everyone I work with. I can talk a lot. And
Mhm,
so always in the back of my mind, I think less is more, less is more. And
mhm,
it really showed me a path forward where you can approach this function in a less is more way. It doesn't have to be
mhm,
complicated. It doesn't have to be um hard to digest. Like you can get right to the point. Treat people like adults. And if you do, it will be reciprocated and handle
mhm,
problems like adults.
mhm.
Um, it also has influenced how we do performance management and really when someone doesn't work out, it really
Yeah.
comes down to two things like treat people with dignity and respect, and it can't be a surprise, you know?
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot, especially because I think as we start to adapt to so much of what's happening in the world with technology, AI, all these things,
Yeah.
we I think in our own minds we kind of become our own worst enemies into taking these things and like, okay, it sounds complicated, so therefore it must be complicated in how we execute, and sometimes actually not the case at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very direct, very simple, but brainstorming those things and having those conversations really makes a difference as opposed to just plopping it up, plotting it all on the table, and then getting just
Oh,
everybody's heads on fire.
yeah. No, 100%. And, like when you think about like the dreaded PIP, the performance improvement plan. Oh, no one likes that. Everyone hates it. Everyone knows what it really is. It's buying
Hmm.
time before you might not make it. And I don't know if I believe in those kind of ways. I think there's a more adult way to have a difficult conversation around someone's underperformance without the rigmarole of a pit that is awkward and demotivating and an unnecessary tough thing to do. So I've been with the company for about 15 months now. So I'm approaching people operations maybe in a different way than my predecessor did. And that's no, what do the youth call it? Tea shade. That's no shades or anything like that. But it's just like where PadSplit once needs to go in order to do what it needs to do. It has to sort of
Mm,
shift in the way that um how to approach problems and
yeah.
maybe people problems.
Yeah. Mm, interesting. I really like that
And
perspective.
move quicker without it being a surprise. And that's the
Yeah.
balance.
I like that part. That like that. It's like the cherry on top. Don't make it a surprise. It's like don't call them out, and then it's too late. It's like no, talk them through with it. Like be
Yeah.
very clear, be very direct. Transparency and communication is key throughout the
Yeah.
entire process. Amazing. One
Which
question I'll always. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to weave in another opportunity to talk about another one of our values of self awareness. And that is also a big part of how we tell stories around our people. And like for me, I have enough self awareness to know that I have never really led a marketplace company in a global capacity in the magnitude that hopefully PadSplit will hit one day. And knowing that, as much as I'm going to try to be the person who could be that, guy, if the business is moving faster at my ability to keep up with it, then I have enough self-awareness to know like the business needs someone who has more expertise and experience than me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And those are a lot of stories that, are hard to hear, but
Yeah.
when you're growing this fast, you have to have enough self-awareness to see what's going on in the business and if you
Yeah.
can keep up or not.
Mhm. Comma, and that's okay as well.
And that's okay.
If it comes around,
100.
because like
Mhm.
as someone who is self-aware, you're gonna give your best, but if things need to happen, that's okay. You'll
Yeah.
adapt when time comes. That's awesome. I really really like that. What I was going to say is a question I always ask to every single guest coming on as well is there's so many often so many priorities in business, so many things that we want to focus on, so many fires that we want to put out, so many obstacles that we want
Mm.
to get over. So a question I like to ask is if you had a magic wand and you
Mm.
could just solve one of those obstacles, those challenges, anything that you're facing that would actually allow the business to hit its client acquisition goals, its revenue goals, really looking at the growth of the company, something that you can control. Maybe it's not
Mm.
specifically in your control, but maybe another department, any part of the business internally. You wave that wand, that problem gets solved, your goals happen.
Yeah.
What's the problem you want to solve?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I don't know if I'm gonna have a great answer. I think off the top of my head, what I imagine. Oh boy. Oh boy, it's like my operator mindset is hire more account executives in all of these markets. I wish it's money, right? Money's an obvious one. But
Mhm.
I also think in my world, and I'm not saying that this is a big problem that PadSplit has, but it's a problem that any company has, and it's when it comes to communication and
Mhm.
being a fully remote company, you have to be very intentional with the way you communicate and how you communicate, when you communicate.
Mm, mm,
And I think if I could wave a magic wand, I would like make every single person take like advanced communication,
mm.
like
Interesting.
learnings and lessons because when you work from home, every time you talk to someone, it's usually because you need something from them or they need something from you. And you have to be really good at advocating for yourself. And so communication is just so, so, so important
Yeah,
that a lot of small problems could be avoided to become bigger problems
yeah,
if people just communicate
yeah.
effectively.
I agree. I agree. Do you think that also translates into how the company, not even just you, but like the company as a whole, can communicate or communicates to the customer? Like, and having
Mhm.
that offer, that right messaging, the right value proposition. Do you think that also translates there as well? The thing that you just talked about?
Yeah, I do. And I think really good communicators also do a great job of managing expectations. And I
Mhm.
think like that's how you have someone who's putting in a support request and he's probably really stressed out and just wants help. And you respond with listening, acknowledging, and then managing their expectations on timelines or what you can do and what happens next. So
Mhm.
that's how I think we have great, if my head of CX was here, they would tell stories around how we have really great net promoter scores. And
Uh-huh.
we also have, our customers sort of have different needs. A host wants things a certain way that doesn't necessarily align with our members. And so we
Mhm.
have different support teams
Mhm.
to
Got
help.
it.
And sometimes there's conflict there. And so we have to sort of do what's best for everyone.
I
And
like that.
that mo yeah.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? I don't
You
know if I
didn't.
did.
You did answer
Okay.
your question. Yes.
Okay.
No. And I always ask that because I think it's interesting to hear how leaders are having different perspectives, because oftentimes a lot of the thought process is all internal. If we fix this internally, then that allows to do so much more on the growth externally.
Mhm.
Oftentimes it's the other way around. If we're able to fix, for example, I'll just use communication and messaging as the same example. If we're able to fix that in the term in how we do our marketing and our sales and our BD, then the conversations that we have create easier opportunities for the internal team. So it's interesting. I always like to ask that because then I have a good understanding of one, what's going on in people's mind, but two, it's interesting to see the different ways that leaders try to focus on a lot of these issues to progress the company regardless, because everybody has the same mission, the same goals to keep the company growing. It's just how do you get there sometimes can be in different ways. So yes, you did answer my question.
Okay,
And
great.
I have one final question for you,
Okay.
Justin, which is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who we were.
Oh,
So here's the question. You ready for it? This is actually a deeper one.
that's my drum roll.
All right.
Okay.
What have you done that has made your life much harder than it needed to be, and that you would do differently if you could?
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. What? Oh boy, I could take that a lot of places. I think like the it's probably, I'm going to tie in one of our values, but the self-awareness, like
Mm,
my very first startup, I was like employee number 3. I was
mhm,
and I had this awesome opportunity to accidentally build a human resource department from the ground up and got to
mhm,
see what a company looks like when there's 3 dudes in a basement underneath a yoga studio to over 120 people who
mm,
right now are like one of the biggest sports tech companies in the world. And
mhm,
I remember how hard it was for me. And I thought it was a weakness to ask for help. So I never asked for help.
mm,
I would take everything on myself, and then I would internalize all of the stress of just not being able to do it all, but thinking that if I admit that, then I'm a failure. I can't
mm,
do my job. I'm going to get fired. And so I just had such a hard time asking for help and just admitting that you can't do it all. Why are you trying so hard?
mm,
And so I think what I would have done differently is I probably would have asked for help sooner than I came to the realization that I needed it.
Hmm. That's
Mhm.
a very wise one because I think we're all guilty of that to some extent. Some more than others. Me also guilty of that many, many times as well. But I think I don't know if you're religious or not, but there's a saying of you ask and you shall receive, right?
Mhm.
Knock the door and I shall enter. Ask and you shall receive. And it's the same way in business or anything in life, right? Just ask the questions. Really, there are people who want to help, and there's so many things that they can do for you, and they are
Mhm.
willing to do for you. But I think our egos and our pride can stand in the way of that sometimes. So it's
Yes.
a huge thing one, and I completely agree with you, Justin.
Yeah.
This has been such an incredible talk. Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time. Yeah, I really appreciate you. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you and of course also a little bit more about PadSplit?
I guess you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not a very social person, like in the media, so you really can't find me anywhere. I'm just working away here at PadSplit, making sure this company is, the best company in the world, doing whatever I need to do.
Amazing.
Um, yeah.
Good stuff. I will leave all the links down below here if you want to check Justin or anything for PadSplit out. And if you're still listening to this conversation, you want to hear more conversations like this, please hit the subscribe button and I will see you on the next episode. Justin, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. How fun.